G'day guys, welcome to Tasmanian Fishing Adventures. Today we'll be testing out a new rod. It is a Daiwa Shock and it's got the matching reel with it as well. So we're on the upper Leven River fishing for rainbow trout and hopefully getting onto a few. So we're going to be setting up the rod with a bottom rig on. So we'll be using bait today, which I don't normally use bait for trout in rivers, but we've got a few baits that should be working at this time of the year, so we're going to check that out and hopefully get onto a couple of nice trout. So from first impressions of this rod, it does appear to be a pretty good all-rounder rod that you could use for multiple different species, not just trout. You could probably use it in saltwater as well, either spin fishing for salmon or barracuda, or just bait fishing as well for trout. So it is a fairly good spin rod, and one of the main advantages of it will be its price. It is a very cheap setup, about $50, and basically it enables anyone to go fishing and be able to catch a wide variety of different fish. So it should do the trick today, but we'll see how it goes. So at the moment, putting on a running sinker rig. So basically there'll be a sinker down to a swivel. Then you have a leader line, using probably about 50 centimeters of leader. So that leader will be on the end of that. You'd have a hook with the bait on it, and basically the longer leader allows for the bait to kind of drift around naturally in the flow of the water. So we'll be putting a fairly small hook on. There's two different reasons for that. For starters, trout have small mouths. If you have a really big hook, you're probably going to be reducing the amount of hookups that you'll get from the fish. But on top of that, the bait that we're using will be a floating bait. So if you put a heavy hook on, the bait will just sit on the bottom, and you want the bait to be off the bottom where the fish will see it easily. So we're going to put a fairly small hook on, and that's on the end of about 50 centimeters of 6-pound fluorocarbon line. The advantage of fluorocarbon is that it is quite strong and very thin. So basically you can have a heavier weight fluorocarbon and still have it to be thinner than a monofilament. So the fluorocarbon seems to be a good way to go with trout, since they do have very good eyesight. So the bait that I'm using today is the Berkley Gulp trout eggs. So you're not allowed to use actual real trout eggs in Tasmania for trout fishing, but I've got these artificial ones, and I'll grab some out. You can see they're bright orange and they're quite soft and squishy, so they feel like real eggs. They look like real eggs, and they smell pretty bad as well, so imagine they smell like real eggs. The idea of these is that they imitate trout eggs, and they also float. So they get your bait off the bottom, they go onto the hook very easily, they get your bait off the bottom so that it looks a little bit more natural, floating in the mid column of the water, and any trout swimming past will hopefully grab onto these eggs and get stuck on the hook. So quite natural looking bait. They smell very bad, so hopefully it smells good for a fish. So we're going to cast out here. Got a bit of a slower flowing part of the river, fairly deep, but it's still a bit more movement, so hopefully that scent will travel downstream, the fish will smell it, they'll come up and maybe grab onto these little Berkley Gulp eggs. So here we go. Alright, so the second rig that we're using today is a float rig. So we've got those eggs on the bottom now, and we're also going to have a few eggs under a float. So the float that I've got here is an adjustable float, so it can go up and down on the line. And when you get it to the right level, depending on where you're fishing in the river, you might vary it. You just pull that, twist it a few times, and it's stuck on the line there. So after or below the float, I've got a little bead. The bead's not really doing all that much apart from weighing down those eggs. Because the eggs do float, you don't want them floating on the surface, you want them to be under the water. So the little bead will be keeping those eggs down underwater. And again, we're going down to a small hook, and I'll put a couple of eggs on that hook. So we'll be casting this upstream, just like you were to be lure fishing. Be casting this upstream and then winding in the slack as it comes down towards you, and hopefully we'll see this float disappear underwater, and that means that a fish has taken the eggs. Overall, I don't think float fishing, casting and retrieving is a common method used for trout fishing. Definitely bait fishing's not unheard of, using worms and things like that, but combining that with using artificial eggs, it's probably not a very common technique. I've never used it before, I must admit, but just because it is late in the season and eggs is one thing that the trout might be eating, I thought this might work out quite well. So we'll keep persisting, we'll see if we can catch any fish. It hasn't filled me with confidence just yet, this technique. I actually have a bit more confidence with the sinker rig, the rig on the bottom. The casting and retrieving seems to make the eggs fall off very quickly. So with the float rig, always casting, retrieving, it's making me lose confidence. But the advantage of the float rig is that you're going to have a more natural presentation to the fish, with those eggs floating down with the current, whereas on the bottom, of course, the eggs are just sitting still or sitting in the one spot. So we're going to move to a spot with maybe a little bit slower flowing water, and hopefully we can entice a couple of trout. So we've moved only slightly upstream, but I think the water is a little bit calmer, a little bit stiller here, more still. So theory is our techniques might work a little bit better. So I'm just putting a couple of fresh eggs on the sinker rig. I'm going to chuck this out, but only very close to shore, because the further you get out, the quicker the water is moving. So I'm going to just chuck this out only 5 meters out, and it looks quite deep. I can't see the bottom here. That disappears down there. I'll also try the float rig with an additional egg. Oh, you keeper. Oh, fighting back.
It's a parrot perch, isn't it, Rory?
Big parrot perch. Oh, he's
Oh,
got
you
off.
lost him.
Got off at the last
Jesus.
second. Where was the net?
This is amateur hour at the moment, people.
We'll make a good Instagram video if nothing else. They're huge.
Huge. That must have been a PB.
Oh, at least 5 kilos. Just see how when I let a little bit of slack go, it went boom, straight back for the depth, looking for a rock to hide under.
Yeah. I'm surprised that didn't overrate your rod, to be honest.
Only 6-pound line. Must have been stretched.
Look, there's one right there. It's stalking us. It's about to pounce on you. Like a croc.
Renowned for stalking.
Yeah. I've got 17 minutes of battery and you've got 17 eggs left, so there's like
3 minutes of video.
Current rate. We're about right.
We've got a couple of nibbles.
Oh, nice.
Got one. Woo! We've actually got one. Oh, it's tiny. It's tiny. We've got one. That's a little tiny little brown trout. Ah! Look at this. Check this out. We've caught a fish on the gulp eggs. It's a very small brown trout, but it's a fish. How about that? Look at him. Beautiful little brown trout. He doesn't have the white fin markings, so this guy's way too small. This one was probably born last year. So it'll be a yearling, so 1 year of age. So probably breeding next year. But the little gulp eggs, they worked. I'm pretty impressed with that. Just got the little bites, rod went off, and it was only a few meters off the shore there in a little deep spot, and we've done well. Woo. I'm pretty pumped about that, even though it's a little fish. Proof that they're taking those eggs. That's what they'll be feeding on naturally at this time of the year. Proof in the pudding. Put them back in. Alright guys, that's a wrap from me today. Using the Berkley Gulp eggs was an interesting experience. I found that using them on the bottom was a bit more useful, particularly with this fast flowing water. It was a bit difficult with the always casting and retrieving the floats, and then you just lost the eggs. So as a summary, they work. They don't stay on all that well, but they caught a fish. So wild fish do like these artificial baits. So it's probably worth giving it a shot if you're trying to find something different to do. Definitely give that a shot, but otherwise, until next time, I'll see you out on the water, wherever that may be.